Katie, Robbie, it's so amazing to have you guys back in the studio. This episode is going to be a fun one because do y'all ever listen to that podcast on NPR called How I Built This?
I used to.
Yep.
Okay. This is going to be the Force of Nature version of How I Built This. The Where Hope Grows version of How I Built This. So it's going to be a real look inside the creation, the ideation, our journey as entrepreneurs in the meat space. I think every company needs a good founding story, right? And I also think that a founding story is kind of like a birthing story where you have this child that comes into the world and you're overwhelmed with the 5 stages of denial and grief. You know that? Where there's like the highest highs and the lowest freaking lows. But you got like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. But I just want to make sure that the listeners know that like our founding story, it hasn't been an easy journey, but it's an important journey. And so let's be completely transparent with the high highs and the low lows. You guys committed?
I'm committed. I think if you were to compare this to How I Built This, I would definitely say we have a better charcuterie setup for the podcast.
I was going to say if you compare it to How I Built This, it would be like the unwoke version of How I Built This.
Well,
no woke.
Let's do it. I think Morgan's actually trying to get us on How I Built This. So we were going to use this as the pilot. We were going to send this to them as the pilot to show how what potential we have. I think
I can get super woke if they
we torch that bridge. No going back. Anyway, so maybe as a good starting point, we can talk about, we all grew up together, grew up in Austin, Texas, knew each other when we were very young, and then drifted apart over many years, but then came back together. So I was just curious, growing up in school, did y'all take those childhood personality tests, which were also known as vocational tests?
No.
Oh,
okay. So this morning, Taylor asked me if I had taken one of those, and I was like, no. And he was like, yes, you did. Everyone did. Everyone. I'm
you
like,
guys did.
No,
you blocked it out.
You went to a different school than us in elementary school.
It was a public school. It was like criteria. It was like sex ed. You had to do it.
You took a vocational test in elementary school?
Uh-huh. And I very much remember, like, my vocational test said that I should join the Army, which, I mean, America, hell yeah, fight for freedom any day, red, white, and blue. But I was a little bit nervous about, I didn't grow up around guns, and so I was kind of scared. But I guess the point is, so you guys didn't take these freaking tests. Maybe I'll ask you, what did you want to be when you grew up, like your 8-year-old self?
A doctor, pediatrician.
Wow.
That's a noble profession.
I did not have anything in mind, actually. I just did not want, I had to work for my dad for so long when I was growing up that all I knew that I wanted to be when I grew up was somebody that didn't have to work for somebody like my dad. So I just didn't want to have to work for anybody. I wanted to be my own boss because my dad was my boss forever. So I wanted to be my own boss.
That's beautiful. You still are very independent in that way. I think the purpose of asking that was that in retrospect, I don't even think that being in agriculture was a potential pathway that we were exposed to as children. Certainly not myself, certainly not through school, but it's arguably the most virtuous and important career path anyone could take. So could you guys ever imagined being so deeply rooted in regenerative agriculture and this space right now in your lives?
No, I mean, I think last night, remember we were playing, there's this game called Around the Table. And it's like you pull up questions and then everybody in your family answers the question. Anyway, one of the questions was, can your younger self imagine where you have landed today? And Scout was like, there's no way you could have thought that you would have had bison and us. And she's right. I couldn't have imagined that this would have been our path. Even 10 years ago, even 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. So.
Yeah, no. I mean, I did medical programs in high school and went to college as pre-med. I didn't expect to do anything different than that at all. So absolutely not. I always loved outdoors and being in nature and all that kind of stuff, but it always seemed like you had your profession and then you had the things separately that you enjoyed.
It's funny that you married a doctor. You're like, well, if I can't be a doctor, I'm going to marry one. That was a good call.
It was many years later,
Well, yeah,
but that is
it
interesting.
is interesting. It's just interesting.
So we are here. We have arrived. We're so deeply immersed in this space, even though we never saw ourselves going in this direction. But I think it's important, as we touch on the start of Force of Nature, we can't skip over maybe how we started working together again. So very briefly, do you want to talk about the epic early days and how all of us aligned and how regenerative came to be a part of our cosmic journeys?
Sure, I'm sure we all have a little bit different stories. I remember you and I were working on Thunderbird, and we would.
What is Thunderbird?
Oh, the vegan energy bar company.
Like the cars, the classic cars.
So we used to work on classic cars.
The shop.
And Robbie was like a huge muscle car man. I don't know. So the vegan energy bar company, and I don't know when I don't know how it came to be, but I remember going on bike rides with you. I don't know how did that happen?
Just Robbie's a networker, man.
Yeah,
He just reached out.
No
Probably
shit.
hit us up on Facebook before we deleted our accounts.
Is that how you reached
when it
out?
was safe?
Facebook?
I have no idea. I mean, we all knew each other forever, so there's somehow
we ended up on some
reconnected.
bike rides together, and
y'all kicked my ass.
oh, I didn't know that.
I think Katie kicked all of our asses.
No, I didn't know that.
Do y'all remember that one bike ride we went on when it was very early on when Katie was pregnant
Oh my God,
with
I will never
our
forget
first
that
child,
moment.
and
I do remember
You
that.
did you? I
It
don't
must have
think
been
that
so
I told you I
awkward
was
for
pregnant.
Robbie.
I told
No, you didn't tell me you were pregnant.
I didn't tell you I was
just
pregnant.
You had that moment of
complete meltdown.
there was a lot of struggle,
I think
which was atypical because Taylor and I were normally getting our butts kicked by Katie, and so for Katie to have a moment of I have to stop, I'm having a panic attack.
We were going up this huge hill on Bee Caves. Is that what that road's called?
Yeah.
Bee Caves. And y'all were like kicking my ass so hard because I was like not feeling great. And I remember I was like, Taylor, you have to slow down. You have to slow down. And he like looked at me and he was like, you need to suck it up. And I was like, you're fucking dead. And I like had like I couldn't breathe moment and like tears, and it sucks crying on your bike.
That's pretty rude.
It was so rude.
Robbie's seen a lot of maybe opportunities for couples counseling, some challenges in our relationship for sure over the years.
I learned never to tell my pregnant wife if she was having a hard moment to suck it up.
Yeah.
I learned that day too, and I never do that. And then the other early memory, before we started all these businesses and we were riding bikes together, do you remember when we were going down that road in Westlake on a kind of a wet morning?
Oh, on
and
Redbud?
Robbie slid off his bike into oncoming traffic on a downhill?
Yeah.
Yeah, Redbud. And like the cheese grater section, that was
Mhm.
terrible.
Dude, you could have easily died that day.
Big time. But we still rode on like another 70 miles after that.
So I guess that's how we came back together later in life, through an appreciation for nature and endurance sports. And then, as Katie was mentioning,
And being a masochist.
Yep. Robbie was our CFO at Epic in the early days, and we had an amazing time growing that brand. That was really when we started that company. It was about high nourishment, nutrient-dense food for consumers, putting animals in their unique context that they biologically evolved in. And then we kind of like in this journey found this thing called regenerative agriculture. And I remember it was so hard to explain what regenerative agriculture was when we were part of Epic. Do you guys remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It was so awkward when someone said, "What's regenerative agriculture?"
I know. I was like, please don't look. I'm gonna like look at Taylor, and Taylor has to answer the question.
Look at Robbie. Because we
had Avery asked us last week for us to write our definition of regenerative agriculture, and we all had different.
Did you answer?
Of course, I did.
What was it?
I mean, I did not do it in 2 sentences.
Damn, I figured.
let's do ours. If you need to look yours up, here's our evolved definition of regenerative agriculture. I remember yours if you don't, Katie.
Well, how am I gonna look it up? Well, you remember it because you and
So mine was the labor of singing light. And I know you're like, what the hell? Get out of here. That has nothing to do with regenerative agriculture. But hear me out. I think the labor is the work, and singing or sowing light is essentially the foundation of regenerative agriculture. It's maximizing the photosynthetic capacity of the land to cycle sun energy, which is this amazing particle state of energy coming from the cosmos, and watching it phase shift into grass, which acts as a carbon battery for our planet. And so that for me is where I'm at right now. I do a little bit of singing to our bison and to our fields, and it's been working out for me. But yes, the labor of singing light.
See, but you just gave a definition that required an elaborate explanation, which kind of is contradictory to what a definition should be.
If you ask any nerd what regenerative agriculture means, they're always going to say holistic, context,
Plan grazing.
blah, blah, blah. So
Net positive.
I wanted to mix it up. I wanted to create
I appreciated your concise answer because it gave me I borrowed 2 of the sentences that you were allocated. I allocated to mine because you didn't use them.
Oh, go for it. Let's do, well, actually, no, let's go in the order of most esoteric to most probably like something that's structured and understandable. Katie?
I wrote that I couldn't come up with some definition that wasn't already been repeated a million times, so I had Taylor help me. Shocker. It's poetic. Okay, here it is. Slow dancing with Mother Earth and letting her take the lead.
Ooh, okay.
Pretty good. Less explanation needed, right? You can kind of just visualize it. I don't even need to say another word.
It's very romantic.
Very.
It kind of reminds me of like that Charles Eisenstein quote where he's saying like our relationship with Mother Earth has to evolve with our species. Like the fact that we call her Mother Earth is like we're a child, we're a dependent, we take. It's a very one-way relationship. And you don't really want to slow dance with your mom because that can be a little awkward. At least I don't. No offense, Kathy Collins. But it's like evolving to maybe be in partnership in a relationship with Mother Earth. And so slow dancing, being in love, being in relation, it's the evolution. But letting her take the lead.
I think it's beautiful. It's perfect.
Okay, Robbie, you're up.
So I as I tend to do, didn't play exactly by the rules. I gave myself 1 extra sentence. And I also feel like the question wasn't a good question because most people don't understand agriculture, so they can't understand regenerative agriculture by comparison.
Fair.
And so then I had to, so I framed it and then gave a definition. So mine was, the industrial commodity farming model at its core relies on the destruction of life, the desecration of land, and the attempted domination of nature through chemical and mechanical warfare against her. Instead, regenerative agriculture is farming and ranching in the image of nature to promote life and thriving ecosystems. Regenerative agriculture celebrates the wisdom of nature by implementing practices modeled after her blueprint that she left us. These subtle yet powerful shifts in practice restore health and vitality to our critical food protection lands, to our food-producing communities, and to consumers, as well as to the world more broadly.
That was pretty great.
That was a good textbook answer.
Yeah.
If you told some random guy on the street, they'd be like, I have no fucking idea.
What the fuck are you talking about?
But I think they'd say that with all
you
of
just
ours.
said dancing with nature. So, I mean,
That's true.
Yeah. It means something to everyone else. But at the end of the day, I think it means the same thing to all of us. Okay, well, that was interesting.
it hasn't gotten any easier. It's a problem that it's one of the big problems that we're trying to solve. That's why part of the reason we're doing this podcast and this company exists.
Exactly. So let's get into like this whole idea of force of nature. Because we parted ways, we ended up selling Epic, and really at that point in our lives, we were free from any.
We parted ways. We've ever parted ways
with Epic.
Oh, I thought you meant with each other.
No, with Epic. That was like our first child. Just like went off to college, and we said, "Good luck. We think we've raised you right, but now you're going to get a good indoctrination in college, and who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what your pronouns are going to be in a year or two." But Epic, we did that. My point is we could be anywhere in our life. We could do anything after that. It was like a blank slate, a blank canvas to reinvent ourselves or to pursue another passion or to start something different. But we kind of doubled down on this life journey into regenerative agriculture. And so I was wondering if you guys had a moment that stood out in your mind, like a catalyst or an aha defining moment that really changed your perspective and just made you that much more committed to pursuing this path of regenerative agriculture.
Do you have one?
I remember vividly not wanting to start another business, and all of us being like, that is really difficult and really unlikely to be successful. And then the space has seen so many attempts at this and failures. But I remember all of us, after years of, you guys bought the ranch, 2 of you, and then were kind enough to let me put a few animals into the herd of bison, along with Kirk, who's with us today still at Force of Nature. And I remember getting to do tours on the ranch, and people, because of the relationship at the time with Epic and that overlap, there was major media coming out, and there was celebrity type people, and there was influential parties within the space, major retailers and other folks, and just being kind of like slapped in the face over and over and over again about how logical and powerful regenerative was as a solution to our many challenges within our food system, and yet how little progress was being made to bring a system that was accessible to most consumers, and we were like, dear God, please, I don't want to have to be the one to do this. This is just like this sounds like so much work and so difficult, and it's so comfortable where we're at right now, but also so compelled that like, if this challenge is this frustrating to us, we have to do something about it. We can't sit by. And I feel like it evolved over months and years. All of us, like, we would never do this, right? Like, no, absolutely not. And then but we kind of sort of need to, right? And then eventually it seems like we kind of came around together and convinced each other that we should give it a go, that it was necessary. And I remember thinking like, you know what, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's fine, but at least we can say we tried, because I'm so tired of doing these tours and seeing these people have epiphanies and then not having a call to action for them that they will follow up on.
Yeah.
What was your moment?
Um,
There had to have been something foundational that ignited your fire, as Robbie was saying, for us to jump into this endeavor, this organism, this force of nature.
I think for me, it's just probably not one single moment. I can think of a couple single moments where I was like, man, I wish I could have some animals, or I wish I had some land. But it's like the accumulation of multiple moments of being on regenerative spaces, and just, like hearing, seeing, breathing, feeling all the energy that is a regenerative ecosystem, and just knowing I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah. For me, I remember it was going to London to a savory conference. And I remember thinking like, this land management stuff's important, but really at the end of the day, if a bison or a cow is eating grass, then like that's peak nutrition for the animal and for the human. But this event, it was such a celebration of farmers as this like most highest calling pursuit of managing land and feeding society. And I just remember being so moved by the flight of farmers that it brought me to tears. Like, they were the all-stars. I never really care about celebrities, but like shaking a farmer's hand was for me just so powerful. And I actually cried that day.
You
I shook
cried?
Spencer and Abby's hand from the Jefferson Savory Clinic, like hub up in Northern California, which was pretty rare. And I was wondering, Katie and I were talking about this last night, Robbie.
Do you cry?
Have you ever cried before?
Yeah, I have.
You have? When?
That's such a ridiculous question.
We were talking about it last night, truthfully.
We really were.
Because I don't cry very often, so not to put you on the spot.
I know. I'm like, you cried when you were in London? What?
I know. I was all by myself.
Who are you?
Yeah, no one knew me. It's like I was a foreigner.
It was touching. It was a touching moment, though. It was very powerful.
Yeah.
But you guys, casually changing the subject.
I know. I'm like,
you just gave your reasons for buying Rome Ranch and putting bison on it, is what it sounds like to me. But then expanding that into trying to start a brand of meat and selling it on a national scale and aggregating tons of farms to do it. it's a little bit. That was a step beyond the ranch.
Yeah. For I think when we were thinking about starting Force of Nature, we really drove a lot of change with Epic. Our kind of like one of our underlying legacy goals was to convert 1 million acres of agricultural land to regenerative, which we did. And that felt like such a moonshot, but we were able to do it. And so I remember when we were coming up with this concept of Force of Nature, we were like, we have the potential to sell pounds of meat, drive impact by pounds, not by ounces. And we really challenged ourselves with some of like the most audacious legacy goals ever known. Which why don't you guys, let's just cover those legacy goals. So this is like, we're sitting down, we're saying, all right, we're going to do this, peer pressure. You're in, I'm in, let's go, high five. But then we said, all right, first thing we're going to do is like, we're going to create our values, our mission, our legacy goals.
Wait. Hold on.
I still want to know when you cried. I can't get past it.
Well, we can cover that one at a time when it's actually interesting for the people that we're recording for. But I feel like we would do tours at the ranch, and then it would come to the end, and people would be in tears.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd be like, "Where can I buy this?"
Not Robbie and I, though.
How can I support this? Where can I buy regenerative meat? And we were like, I don't know, like at the ranch, or maybe you could go to a couple farms on the East Coast. There's some in California,
in the Southeast to get beef. There's a place in the Northwest to get, and it was just like, but also you got to read some books. And what about the farmers market? Well, like you should understand what your values are, and then talk with your farmer and support them for sure if they're aligned. But it's like it became this job for somebody to have to go do tremendous amount, like all the research that we had done leading up to that point to understand the food system. And people, even in those moments where they had gone through that experience of being on a regenerative farm and being through such a powerful moment and feeling so compelled to want to support it and being moved in such a way where maybe they were legitimately crying, or maybe they were just like ready to charge into the storm, and then giving them a call to action that was so significant that most of them wouldn't even follow through. And it was like this realization that if these people with this in this position, to be a change leader and a change agent in the space and feeling compelled to do something about it, are faced with what it takes, and they're not going to. The average consumer going to the grocery store just trying to figure out how to stretch their grocery dollar and feed their family and deal with all their other stress and pressures of life isn't going to do it. So like, we have to make this really easy for them. We have to make it really clear, like that there is an issue and that there is an alternative, and we have to help them understand those things and allow them, give them a pathway to support it that fits their realistic ability to do so. And to me, that was like where Force of Nature really emerged from everything that we were doing, is us just being continuously frustrated by like, shit, all this time, all this work, all the progress and momentum we established with Epic, but it's still at the same crux, like there needs to be more demand, and there needs to be more of consumer advocacy. There needs to be a movement, a groundswell from the most powerful force, which is the masses, to stand up for themselves and to stand up for a better system. And then it was just like, we were all like, well, I'm not going to do it if you're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it if you're not going to do it. Like, I'm not going to do it if Kirk's not going to do it. And then I was almost reluctantly did it by necessity, it felt like.
Yeah. I felt like the universe was screaming at us, giving us every form of a signal to do it, to take a leap of faith, which I think that's something we've always done, the three of us, is being able to do hard and meaningful work, be fearless, or maybe we can still be fearful, but take more risks than other people. And I think this was a risky move to jump into this space, but I'm so grateful we did it. And I think when we started, there were some real hardships because we were stoked on it, but we might have been like a year or two too early to the party. Like regenerative wasn't understood enough to really start a company based on regenerative. Because I felt like when we started Force of Nature, it was like grass-fed was the highest tier, highest claim. And we were trying to, grass-fed or organic, but we were trying to advocate for something above that. And so what do you guys remember, like hardship-wise from the start? What were some of the, I don't know, the moments where we thought we were going to crush, and then we actually inadvertently got crushed?
Oh man, there's so many.
There's a lot. I was initially thinking just the name itself. We were like, do we go with Rome Ranch or do we go with a different name? And then like there were some like trademark issues with people and attorneys and all the things. And then that I felt like that was just like the trademark stuff is so annoying. So that was like headache number one. But there's like a million hardships that we faced. I mean, I would say that we didn't launch too early. I would say that launching too early, like put us on the map as like the ones trying to start the conversation. Like, oh, those guys have been saying that for a couple years now. Okay, now I'm actually paying attention after I heard it 7,000 times now. But, of course, going into buyer meetings where people don't understand what we're talking about is a clear problem.
Do you remember in buyer meetings early on, people were actually, we had buyers tell us directly, like, I can't put this on my shelf because my customers, in their mind, they are already imagining that the products I'm selling achieve these attributes. But you guys are going to convey a communication that's never been on the shelf, and it's going to make my other products
look bad,
be questionable.
Well, it would make us as a retailer look bad if we put a superior product out and then people realized they were misled previously.
Those are hard conversations.
Yeah, which it's like, this is your reputation on the line and you have a great reputation. Like it's never too late or it's never too early or whichever you want to look at it to do the right thing. And, we thought we could rely on people doing the right thing out the gate because it was so obvious and appropriate, but we had to do it the hard way and force our way, even in the most obvious situations, force our way onto the shelf by proving out performance and getting small tests and, chipping away at a large problem. And that was extremely disheartening whenever we're like, we can solve one of the biggest challenges in this space and you can look like a hero for doing it. And it's like, well,
then we'll look bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just changing consciousness. But we brought people along with us, which is awesome. We didn't just say, fuck that retailer. Like we were persistent. We just painted this picture of a better, more virtuous future, helping them achieve their greatest potential and doubling down on their own efforts and commitments. And so, that was really cool that we brought people along with us on that journey. But I still just felt like we literally were faking it until we got our first PO. I mean, you guys remember some of those early days?
Yes.
Like our first package for our first account. Remember? Yeah. Talk about old Robin at Central Market.
Oh, I mean, that wasn't even the one I was thinking of. But
oh boy,
yeah,
better
that lady,
one?
what an angel she was for us. Like we went to the meat show with a brand, with stickers effectively, and having to go to the store and buy packages of real meat and then sticker over them with our stuff so it would look like we had a legitimate company. With packaging that isn't even what we launched with eventually, but totally faking that we had a supply chain and manufacturing abilities and anything other than a really pretty booth, and trying to just doing a test to see if there was interest and if we could convince folks that there was an opportunity here. And Robin over at Central Market was like, this sounds interesting. We'll give this a go. Like let's give it a try. And we're like, oh crap, we have 2 months to figure out how to actually process meat into packages and sell into this account. But it's really exciting. And we also rebranded in that time frame as well. But I remember, in just going through and doing it, approaching it from a design perspective, like choosing aspirational imagery, she was like, hey, one thing, that cow image on the package, one of those cow's images that you sent me on your rendering is a pregnant dairy cow, and you're gonna need to
don't use that one.
Don't use that one. Come up with something different and better.
That was funny.
It was such a sweet cow. We chose it because it was like looking like deep into your eyes. If you picked up that package, it was like looking into your soul, which was a really nice way to connect with the sentient being that sacrifices life. I love that package. But yeah, I think we landed on something better. But blessed Robin. What other moment were you thinking about?
Oh, I was thinking about Kirk delivering our first official retailer PO to our local co-op in Austin and Yeti coolers out of the back of his truck. And Kirk being like the driver, and not, and the Yeti cooler being like the reefer, and going up the loading dock and dropping off cases and a couple of big Yeti coolers.
Dude, I remember doing demos at Central Market in our local co-op. I hated doing demos. Katie and I did them together, and just because we got burnt out of doing demos earlier in life. But yeah, we were like back at it, which is just so funny because we just parted ways with Epic, and we're literally like bootstrap startup all over again. Our office was Martha's home.
Well, it started as my home until I moved.
Yeah,
and then it was y'all until y'all moved.
Yes, and then it
was Martha's,
and then Martha's kitchen.
But I mean, it's just like it was like this this moment of rebirth where we were like back in the trenches, literally doing everything. I think doing demos at store level, even though it sucks, it's so important because we were able to just connect with people and display to our buyers that we were committed to this, and we always wanted to be a content driving company, and like as founders we could talk to people really passionately and help explain regenerative agriculture. But it also came to us very quickly that it couldn't only be us, and we hired out a pretty amazing team.
Yeah, and then we launched a website in September, and then 5 months later is when all of the COVID fiasco happened. So all of our big retail resets that we thought were coming, all the trucks said no new resets, no new customers. We had built our whole business in this like local proof of concept. So it was like fake it till you make it in that trade show that we just described in March. And then over the course of that summer, I think we had gotten into like 50 high-end restaurants in Austin, and had gotten a few retail accounts and a whole bunch to say, okay, we're going to take it next year. Like, here's the order officially. And all those retail orders fell through, and all of our inventory that was for our restaurant accounts became obsolete because restaurants were shutting down and people couldn't leave their houses. And if we hadn't happened to have started a website a few months before, we would have been totally tanked. But obviously online ordering picked up. And so we, told all of our whole team, everybody on our team, it was like, hey, here's the situation. Obviously, you know the drill. Like, sales team, you're not going on sales calls. There's nobody to receive you. Ops, like, we're not scheduling loads. There's no trucks. And so it's like, go to the warehouse and start packing boxes for online orders, delivered direct to customers. And our head of sales, our head of ops, me, we were all going to this little cold storage place and working out of their break room to pack boxes. And simultaneously, that was when the government came out with that PPE thing, and it was like, hey, look, guys, like, we're not making any money, like, we're way behind, we're bootstrapping this thing. Like, everybody took a pay cut down to the level that we could get reimbursed by from that government program, and nobody batted an eye. They took tens of thousands or more in dollars of pay cut to go down to that level, and then didn't do their job. They did a super blue collar warehouse job and got us through that summer, that stretch. It was like 3 months, I think, before we were able to figure out how to start anew a year and a half later and find the new path forward in a world that we never could have imagined just prior. I mean, that was like, again, we started in March, and it was the next March that, when I say we started in March, we had fake product at a trade show in March, and by the next March, everything was totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was wild.
And that was a silver lining. I mean, COVID, we had that like blossoming, maybe a sprouting business in food service, so all those cool restaurants in Austin. And then COVID was like the cow overgrazed that little sprout, and then the farmer mowed it, and then someone poured glyphosate on it. I mean, it was like smoked. But the silver lining was starting that online business. And then even the greater silver lining was like people actually, that was like a moment in time where people started questioning their own actions, relating health, resiliency to their diet, to their lifestyle. And so there was an awakening where I think that was beneficial for the brand as we were selling a premium product, where people were actually starting to think about what they put in their body, how they fueled their vessel, and how that made them resilient in life. And so I remember, online orders for a moment, crushed. We were like shocked. It was insane. Never expected that to happen.
It totally saved our butt. And it was, to your point, more people were cooking at home, and we were selling, exotic meats, which we did by design because we knew the market wasn't ready for more expensive beef, a highly commodified sector where value had been forgotten in the transaction, and the only thing that was celebrated was cheapness and price. And so we knew that we had to build trust and loyalty for the brand, and we did that by launching ancestral blends that had organs incorporated into them. That was incremental. It was different in the category, and venison and elk and bison, and obviously having the highest level of claims, but building out that brand and that confidence so that when we're selling to consumers who are stuck at home and having to cook for themselves, they were looking for variety, and selling a lot of ground meat, which is what we launched with, because it's so easy to cook. It's hard to screw up ground meat. And it's more cost effective. So I think we just figured out how to pivot and adapt and lean in. And frankly, like this space, this industry it's really challenging. It doesn't have big margins. It doesn't have all of the frills and things and wastefulness that you can get away with in, tech, for example. I think we always look at tech startups and we're like, how do they have so much money to just blow on stupid things like coffee makers and these incentive programs? And we just had to we were forged in this crucible that was like every penny counts, everything matters, find a way to be scrappy and deliver value. Like if it doesn't serve the consumer need or the farmer need, and it doesn't serve this mission of trying to address these global challenges, and we just don't have time or energy or money to it. And it made us operate better and tighter than we ever had, which I think has been a blessing as well.
I think whenever we initially launched the product too, another challenge that we faced was, it was probably my fault, honestly, is I was like, and maybe you got on board with me, but it was like, we will never, ever, ever put our product on sale. Like, animals cannot be discounted. Like, these are lives. We're not doing it. Like there's so many examples of other business models that are like, get a free pound of grass-fed beef for every order for a year or whatever. And it's like, absolutely not will we ever put our product on sale. And I think that was a real challenge in our space, where it's a commodity item for others and not us, like where our mindset is so different than the people that we're competing against. And so, like, buyers are expecting us to come in with, this is how high of discounts we'll give, this is how much free shit we'll give you. And then consumers on the other end, like direct to consumers, sort of expected everything to be a great deal, or you get these things on the side. And we just like refused to do that. And so I feel like we kind of set ourselves up in a little, like to face a little bit harder of a sell because of that.
Yeah, I don't think we were opposed to discounting. It was definitely you couldn't be a discount brand where you were always on discount, or one of those online brands that's like you said, buy now and you get a lifetime supply of free bacon, or buy now and you get a lifetime supply of free whatever it is. It's like, no, like that, like you need to celebrate the value of that animal. Also, we were losing money on every package. And so it was like, we need to offer the lowest price that we can offer, and then do everything we can, to try to support that. And we can't afford to offer too much of a discount, let alone give it away. But yeah, the whole devaluing of the product, because it was the commodity mindset, right? It's just like, it's not cheap. It shouldn't be devalued to the point of it being free or valueless. And so we were trying to figure out how do we promote value as opposed to promoting cheapness by discounting excessively.
Yeah, it was so hard starting an online business. I felt like for a minute we were the only online company in the world that didn't offer free shipping. It's so expensive to ship frozen meat. Just like all in with the box, with the cooler, with the insulation, with the shipping, with the dry ice, with all the hands and the labor and
having to send it overnight or 2 days.
We were like, God dang, like $60 in on shipping at one point, and it's just like, how can we give that away for free? It's just not like this reality of what the true value of this product is, and
the process.
The hands, the labor, and like we wanted to decommoditize the meat industry, but one of our like first battle cries, maybe the first shirt we ever said something like reclaiming the legacy of meat too. And you can't reclaim the legacy of something by devaluing it to free.
But it's like that's where the consumer expectation was and still is. You know, like if you're shipping packets of salt, you can offer free shipping. You know, a $50 box costs $4 to ship, and it can go ground and take however long it needs to take to get there. So, and you got a 60% margin on that product, so you got all kinds of stuff to work with. You know, with meat, you have, you know, barely into double-digit margin, and it has to be shipped in an ice chest effectively in a cooler. And like you said, it has to have dry ice in it, and it's very heavy and very large. And like you blink and you're like $70 in fees to mail this item, which is 10 times that alternative I just gave, you know, and you're doing it on a fraction of the margin. And so it's like, it's a very difficult industry, which is why you see so many brands selling meat online show up and then so many brands disappear, because it's just the consumer expectation for the online model doesn't translate well to a perishable, heavy, expensive, cold item.
So what do you think about like some of our early kind of defining moments or big wins where I want to brag or anything, but you know, like you're like, okay, this could work out. Like we might be onto something. This is putting wind into my sails. What were some of y'all's early moments?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, why?
I can go first if you need to
yeah,
think
you
about
go.
it.
I got a thing.
I'm probably gonna steal y'all's, but the Hop Dotty account was really cool, and that was a funny story too, because we had he was like the chief kind of like product development. He's the guy who ideated all these amazing burgers at this regional chain called Hop Dotty. Best burgers, you know, we had ever been to or eaten at a restaurant, and maybe 50 locations all kind of throughout the Southwest. But he came to the ranch with his fiance, also named Taylor, and they were hunting. They were hunting axis deer, and he's like sitting in the blind with our ranch hand James, and they're like kind of like talking, and James is being kind of a pest, like talking to him about his work when they should be really quiet. And Matt's like, yeah, dude, it would be so cool to sell bison with you guys, but there's just no fucking way that you guys can supply that volume. And James is like talking to him in the blind. He's like, what kind of volume do you need? and Matt tells him the volume, and then James like starts texting Marshall, who's like the head of the sales, in the blind as they're axis hunting. He's like, hey, can Force of Nature do this volume of bison grind? And Marshall's just like, as any good salesman, like,
of course,
let's do it. Set up a meeting. And so like Marshall just like drives out to the ranch to meet them after the hunt to talk about bison. And that was just such a cool defining moment, but a great partnership in which it was like, man, these guys are going above and beyond sourcing. Like they're honoring the animal by talking about its greatest claims and all of its potential and all of its glory and its ability to restore ecosystems and create human health and true value. That for me was just like, man, this is going to work if we can get an amazing regional chain to go hard with this.
I think, though, I didn't ever feel like it wasn't going to work. I always thought it was going to work, but I would be okay if it didn't. You know, like I was like, I'm willing to risk it, but this is going to work because it will, because it has to, because it's fucking awesome. But, you know, I feel like the moment that really made me feel like it sounds silly, that we were onto something, is just like every time that we would interview people to like get new people on the team. I feel like Sean's interview is coming to mind, for instance. Like just like the excitement and passion that these people had about our brand, I was just like, if there's these type of people out there, then there's like, this person just represents hundreds of other people. And that for me was like really motivating and inspiring, that we like really had something going on, because there were like real people that were really excited about it. So excited that they wanted to join our team.
Oh man, all of our employees are, blessings.
Yeah.
Like gifts
Truly.
from a higher power. I mean, it's just insane how lucky we are. And we're starting to highlight all those employees at the end of these episodes just to tell their stories and introduce them because they're such an important part of this overarching organism. But yeah, I agree, man. Are we up to like 30 employees now?
Yeah.
Which is pretty mind-blowing. Starting out, just the three of us faking it, and then early on hiring some friends. Now having 30 people that depend on us, depend on this greater mission. It's pretty humbling.
Yeah, and they're warriors, like you said. They're committed to this. They're not here for the paycheck, and that we've been able. I'm proud that we've been able to improve those circumstances over time. But every one of those folks has made serious sacrifices to be here. You talked about Marshall, and he was supposed to be guiding that hunt with Matt from Hop Dottie, but he was, he also had an infant at home with his wife, and y'all had a baby since we started Force of Nature and had basically no time off. Marshall has, Marshall's had 2, Kirk's had 2,
Ooh.
and we've worked. I remember checking emails in the delivery room. We've never had leave or anything like that, and these guys have never complained. And that was on the heels of taking those pay cuts I just talked about. And so these are people that like really care. They're doing this for the right reasons, and we're fortunate to have them, and it makes me proud as well. I think like as far as like when it started to really click that it's working, not that I doubted, but when it was finally getting traction, I think there's a few examples. I think y'all, those ones you gave are great. I think when I kind of spoke about it a second ago, but like during that COVID time when we launched our website and we're like, hey, we got $17,000 in orders this month. And then it's like, hey, we got $30,000 in orders the next month. And it was like, all of a sudden it started growing and like from a place of desperation, because it really was like, how is this even possible? Like, I don't know. I remember telling the team, like, I don't know what the other side of this looks like, but if we're going to make it through it, we're going to do it together, and we're just going to have an open mind and keep an ear to the ground and work hard and grind. And I remember being in those rooms and being like, hey, we shipped like 200 orders this week. And then like the next week, we shipped like 300 orders this week. We shipped like 4, and it's just seeing that grow. I was like, wow, there's some serious traction to what we're offering. And your point on consumers, seeing the passion in our employees who are representative of large types of audiences and types of consumers. I think like seeing that traction in that product at that time was really cool. And all the account wins, getting Whole Foods, getting Natural Grocers, and then locally, getting H-E-B and, so many others.
Like the success at Earth Fair, I think was really awesome. Success
at Earth Fair recently, Fresh Time, historically, there's been so many where even our local co-op, like, oh my God, telling us at one point, like, you saved our meat category. It's just stagnant, sales were declining, consumers were turning away. We glossed over a big part of starting this company where it was like meat was actually not only all the things we said, but meat was under attack. Like we probably should circle back on that source of the motivation, but consumers were being told in a variety of ways and for a variety of reasons that meat was terrible and evil, and that these new alternatives were better. And so having retailers bring us in and give us feedback like, hey, you replaced 30 products with 10 products and you're doing twice as much business. It's resonating with the consumer. All of those wins were awesome. But then I think there's also like the weird things, like where like this is probably Katie will probably hate this, but I think it's interesting. I think like I remember when somebody was like, hey, Danica Patrick is talking about Force of Nature and she gave us love on social media, or hey, Bear Grylls used to be a vegan and now he's promoting Force of Nature. And like, we have no relationship to this day with either of those people, but they like randomly identified the product as a great opportunity. And it's like really cool to have that like sort of organic reach, and to see stuff like that happening more and more is just, it's wild to me. It's not like I pin my sense of self-worth or our success on those external signals, but to me it's just like, wow, this is like we're reaching them somehow unintentionally, and they're so inspired by the idea of the product that they want to share and post about it for free because they believe in it. Like, dang, I remember watching that show that they were on, or that thing that they did, or whatever it was, and I don't know, to me that was like, those were pretty wild times.
That's so funny. Yeah, you talked about Beyond Meat and Impossible foods, maybe not by name, but when we launched Force of Nature, like that was our biggest competitor. Because I think we see a lot of like other meat companies as being like a potential collaborator or someone that we can like elevate with as an industry. But we never saw, I think like if anyone asked us like, who's your competitor? They thought we were thinking about the meat space, but in my mind, we were always talking about
Fake meat.
the false profits. Yeah,
Yeah.
doubling down on conventional industrial agriculture. And when we launched the brand, I remember we were going into these meetings at the retail level with all the buyers, and these like good old meat boys were just so deflated that they had to put this fake meat bullshit on their shelves. And they were just like, I don't understand why consumers want this. I'm pulling out animal-based products and substituting with this alternative replacement. It doesn't feel right, but I can't articulate it. And those were like the meetings that we just shined. We were like, you don't have to feel guilty about meat. Like we're, again, reclaiming the legacy of meat. This is a better alternative, this better version. And so, yeah, it was really cool to see, like when we launched, we were kind of head to head with those brands competing for shelf space. And then when COVID happened, I took so much joy in seeing all the grocery market shelves just getting wiped out, except for Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat.
Oh, yeah, that was so funny.
Nobody wanted
So
it.
funny.
I'd rather starve. I'd rather eat my cat than eat that stuff. That was like okay, we fucking got this, guys.
But we didn't know that, like when we started and, having these conversations probably late 18 and then actually got going in early 19, they had so much momentum. It was
And
like,
money.
it was very clear that they were going to be the future of food, and they had all the answers, and they were getting all the press, and they had all the money, like you said. And it was like, holy crap, man, this is terrible for meat. This is terrible for regenerative agriculture. Like regenerative agriculture is necessary. It is the path forward to serve all of these folks and their desires. And what's being promoted and what's gaining the most traction is a fallacy, is a lie. And so there was a very much a part of trying to stand up for meat and to defend ranchers and to defend animals that have been on this planet for billions of years, and to defend a way of life, and to defend this idea of like the American eating a steak and being proud of it. And, like you had said earlier, like we're all patriots. We all bleed red, white, and blue. And it's this idea that our way of life is under attack was a massive part of saying, hold on, we gotta stand up to this corruption and this bullshit, and we gotta do something about it. And that was, like you said, exactly where defending the legacy of meat came from.
Yeah. That was like a real David versus Goliath moment too. I just think about the funding. Like here we are printing out labels with our home printer, stickering products by hand, fulfilling orders in a freezer ourselves, scrappy startup budget. And then we're going head to head with, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of investments in these false profit plant-based companies.
Well, you got on one side, on the left side, you got these billion-dollar valued IPOing, insane money backing plant-based things going on with this plant-based, mantra that was permeating through the world. And it's not like the incumbent meat industry were our friends. The industrial commodity meat producers weren't real excited about us creating awareness to all of the compromises they had made and the challenges that they've created in a food system. So we had no friends from anybody that had money or resources or power or influence. We were definitely on an island. And on that island included a bunch of good actors, good farmers and ranchers and regenerative producers and not-for-profits. It's not to say we did this alone, but not by any stretch of the imagination. Like we were standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say, and we were just a part of a movement. But, like that movement was sitting pretty idle in many respects. And it was definitely not an easy place or a comfortable place to be, where all of the influence surrounding you was not in your favor.
Mm-hmm. And the tide has shifted so much since then also. And I think it's really special too. Something that I get really excited about is when we get customer emails or we talk to our customers, and they just have like such incredible testimonials. But I feel like Force of Nature is the first meat consumed by people who have been vegetarian for however many years, 10, 20 years. It's like every day now, someone is starting to eat meat again because their health is deteriorating, they're premature aging, they're infertile, they're frail, whatever. it may be, and they're like looking at their diet and their lifestyle, and they're like, shit, maybe I'm gonna, backs up against the wall, I'm gonna try eating meat. And I love that force of nature is the entry because it's so aligned with their own values. Isn't that so good?
I was thinking about that earlier. Yeah, it's so awesome.
Converting vegan.
I remember
Best.
we got like an argument over this at one point because you wanted to put anti-vegan
On the package?
on some stuff that we were on some marketing, and I was
Probably
like,
at the
guys,
meat shop.
we can't be anti-vegan. And y'all were, but like where you were coming from was like y'all were vegan, and y'all were pissed. Y'all were like, they fucking lied to me. It was harmful, and like fuck them. I'm at war with all of the influences and factors that led to my struggle. And you were like, to me, like that needs to be taken on. And it's like, I agree. But like the individuals like y'all that are being misled are like, what I would always say is like you just look at the numbers, they don't lie. Every vegan is a future former vegan waiting to happen. Like we are the first meat that they're going to come to. And now we're seeing that in the data, like they're coming to us and they're being like, I can't believe like how bad I was doing. I didn't realize it. I had these issues and I went on this journey, and like now I found y'all, and I can have my values for welfare, my values for protecting the environment, my values for, supporting food producing communities and eating healthy things, and, addressing all these issues that I thought meat was guilty of. I can serve all of those things and drive positive outcomes, and I can actually be comfortable and healthy and thriving myself. This is amazing. And so, it's really exciting to be there. And like the other thing is like, I don't want to be, I think the vegan thing is interesting. I think it's fascinating. It's sad that it's so dogmatic, and it's this religious ideology that has manipulated people into being warriors for something that I believe is detriment to their own expense and a detriment to the very things they say they value. But I think it's impressive that there's a large community of people that are willing to make compromises and make sacrifices on a day-to-day basis to pursue something greater than themselves. Sure, a lot of vegans think that it's healthier for them, but a lot of them are warriors for, again, the environment or for welfare or for other things. And it's like the average person is usually taking a path of least resistance. What's easiest, what's most convenient, and what's cheapest. And these are people that are actually willing to take it a step further and do and prioritize something greater than themselves in their decision making. And it's like, I would hate to make an enemy out of that individual because I feel like they're a future convert, and I feel like that's an impressive position to take when the alternative is so much more common and so much easier. And the alternative has led to where we are today. Mm-hmm. The compromised food system we have.
As one of the kind of founding principles was we really wanted to be a content company, because felt like when we started Force of Nature, meat was under attack, but also the meat industry wasn't defending itself. They weren't educating consumers. They weren't staying current with the potential of regenerative. And so we've just been such a force of information to the masses, like this catalyst for awakening. One of the really cool things that I feel really proud about that we've done is we started a conference that we do every year, the What Good Shall I Do event. And Katie, can you talk a little bit about how that started and what that event is?
It actually started because we just were obsessed with Zach Bush. That is the truth of, and we just were like obsessing over every single thing that came out of his mouth, and we were like, we have to get him out to the ranch and have him talk. Let's put on a conference. But like on the back of one of our mules, we have a little sign that says, "What good shall I do?" And it just kept. I feel like around that time, it just kept coming up. This what good shall I do? And Zach really embodies that concept. And so the conference was put on to inspire consumers, nutritionists, farmers, every walk of life to bring more goodness into their lives through the various talks that we put on. And yeah, since then, I mean, it's evolved quite dramatically. It went from kind of super inspiring content to really hopeful content. And then this year it's going to be really hands-on content, which I'm really excited about. We're doing workshops and such. But ultimately everybody leaves. I feel like it's like the one weekend a year where everybody leaves feeling just like so hopeful and inspired. I feel like it's been such a life-changing event for a lot of the people that have come. I mean, talk about the emails that we get. It's just incredible to see what an impact that conference has on people's lives. Was that a decent explanation?
I love that conference is like a microcosm that's representative of the macrocosm of our core consumer base, which is like, well, who's eating this, or who's paying attention, who's our community, and it's just like the best people, and it's so eclectic. It's like truly like farmers and ranchers, people who are boots on the ground that get it, that are already a part of this, but it's bigger than just participating in agriculture. There's like your health practitioners, your more like progressive doctors, your nutritionist, your environmentalist, your conservationist, your backyard gardeners. Like this movement is for everybody who's paying attention. And one of the things that I guess for me at that conference, I remember, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a guy who was like so timid and shy. I think it was after the first year, and he came up to a couple of us and he was like, "Hey, I was suicidal for like years." Do you remember this guy? Either of y'all?
Mm-hmm. I remember you telling the story.
Yeah. He's like, I was suicidal. I was like super depressed. I just didn't see any hope in sight. I was kind of like up against the wall. I didn't see any potential for hope. And I changed my diet. I now exclusively eat Force of Nature meats. And I'm not saying like, it's like sounds like a product drop, but it's really like he was eating meat that had soul and that had spirit, because it was raised on living land, that was an organism, that was all the beautiful and bright things in nature collectively encoding into that meat. And it was just like so amazing to have this guy have this transformative life experience, spiraling in depression and now living his best, highest self and potential based on changing his diet. And again, it doesn't have to be Force of Nature, because we say we're like the best meat on the planet for the planet, but we also don't think we're the only purveyors. We encourage people to shop local if they can, or hunt their own meat. But it's just beautiful that like there is that relationship in place where you can have such a meaningful difference in your life, changing your diet.
I think there's been so many stories like that every year seemingly, and we've even found some of our employees through that conference as well. But I think there certainly was a part of that. I mean, the first one of those was on Earth Day in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the planning for that started in 2021, the ideation of it. And so like we hadn't been allowed to gather in groups of people for, what was it, 2 years seemingly? Maybe more, maybe around 2 years. Felt like forever, felt like an eternity, felt like we were starved for social interaction and a sense of connection. And there had been no conferences of a regenerative capacity or any type of capacity for that matter. And we were like tired of it. We were just like, we have to assemble as human beings and do so in an incredible environment and create an incredible community and experience around being human and talking about issues that we thought, folks could take practical lessons from and have an impact in their own world and their own lives on a daily basis and create hope in that way. But there was definitely like a kind of that Texan in us, like wanting to fight against the incumbency and these alternatives and defending meat. And also in that moment, we were like, fuck this. Like we're getting a group of people together and we're talking about important stuff. I'm tired of being separated from my neighbor.
Mm-hmm. All those poor travelers that got on airplanes for sure had to mask up. And I remember at that conference that year, it was like the intro speaker, it was Zach Bush. He was just like, right now, stop what you're doing, look at someone in the eyes that you don't know and tell them that they're beautiful and give them a hug. And it was just like this release.
Not just any hug.
Oh yeah, a heart hug.
Yeah.
Robbie, have you gotten better at hugging?
Did you?
Something Katie and I always talk about.
I'm an sounds like we talk about
I'm
you
an
all
excellent
the time.
hugger.
About Robbie all the time.
I have a philosophy on hugs that a tummy's got to touch. You can't do like an awkward lean. You can't do whether it's lean or side. Like it's got to be a full embrace and tummy's got to touch. But I think Zach was like, you have to do like a 30 count.
Yeah, it was a very long embrace.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was your rule. We're going to have to hug after this.
See, I feel like we could all improve on our hugs probably, but when I hug Robbie, it's just it's like hugging a very hard piece of wood.
You're just so strong.
So toned.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I think there has to be like Like you got a lot of structure.
That might be the bones.
It's impeding
Might
your
be
flow. I need more flow.
You know who gives the best hugs is Ren.
Ren.
Yeah. They're like so soft and cuddly.
Little
You're just gonna
monkey hugs from little kids are the best.
They're the best. The best.
Yeah, if they can, it's not fair because they can wrap their feet and their arms though, and
it's a full embrace.
Yeah, it's an advantage.
Okay, so kind of wrapping up. I mean, I want people to know that there certainly is hope. We set out some pretty tremendous legacy goals when we started the company. We'll get around to that now, but like literally, we powwowed the three of us, and we were like let's just shoot for the freaking cosmos. I mean, like beyond the moon. What is the most audacious goal that we can set? A reality that we want to bring into fruition, this better future for our children, our children's children. And we came up with three overarching legacy goals, like things that people could write on their tombstone they'd be so proud about.
I think that, and then they all have
stink face. Katie stunk face me.
Sorry. I was thinking I wouldn't want to put that on my tombstone, but
it's just a metaphor.
Okay.
I think central to all three of them though is that like they're not goals really when you break down what they really are. They're not goals about us. They're way bigger than us because like we are not the regenerative movement. It's so much bigger. It's been going on for so much longer and it will continue on, and it's so much more important than anything we could ever on our own reach or control our own. And so all of our all three of those legacy goals are about the mission and the movement being, and it driving an impact at a scale beyond, like at a scale that would be necessary to drive meaningful change globally and actually correct the course that we're on and have the positive and profound impact that we hope for. So
let's all take a turn talking about a goal, one of our legacy goals. After you said they're not goals, our legacy visionary goals,
but not goals.
Who wants to go first?
I think we said 1 billion acres of regenerative impact from our brand alone.
No, not no.
Oh,
no.
See, I fucked it up.
To see the conversion of 1 billion acres to regenerative. There's only like 11 or maybe 12, give or take, billion acres in agriculture globally. So that would imply roughly 10% of agriculture converting to regenerative.
I didn't say it that wrong.
No. But we're not going to directly impact 1 billion acres more than likely.
Okay, got it, with our brand. But the influence, like I think the influence of our brand helps other brands
100%.
convert and raise.
Yeah, we're trying. These are definitely our goals for sure. And it's like we want to support and influence that 100%. And I think again, it's bigger than us.
Totally.
That's why Taylor mentioned it a moment ago. Like we want to be a content creation company, right? We want to create stories and inspire people to support this movement. It's way bigger than us. But getting to that scale, seeing regenerative get to that scale would mean the momentum is
strong,
incredible, and it's moving in that direction, and that it's working and change is happening.
Massive change. I mean, we're not going to like reduce regenerative to the carbon conversation because that happens a lot. But if we could manage 1 billion acres regeneratively, like we'd sequester enough atmospheric carbon that, we'd be like pre-industrial revolution kind of deal. There's a lot of potential there.
Seems like you just made that up.
No way. I didn't exactly do the math on the sheet of paper, but I did it in my head.
Okay. Then
but the point is that, like just one of the benefits of it is like we would just like take this legacy load of carbon in the atmosphere and just cycle it back through the soil where it's supposed to belong. I mean, there's so many other tangential things, but that people get really excited about the carbon conversation. I just think like 1 billion acres is so massive. It's just like the biggest sponge of potential, period.
Totally.
It's a big number. And at Epic, we had 1 million acre goal. So we had to go much bigger. Honestly, like there's no, if regenerative can't get to massive scale and impact like that, then there's no point in doing it. So you might as well set a big goal that's like, hey, this is where it's got to get to, and it can.
Mm-hmm.
I think our second goal is become a household name.
Mm-hmm.
Regenerative,
right?
And we likened it to organic.
Totally, yeah.
That's it.
I mean, the latest data says it varies by state, but something between like on a state by state basis, somewhere like 60 to 80% of consumers are buying an organic item now in the U.S., which is crazy because you think that there's a lot of low income folks that would fall into that large of a group. And that means the implication there is consumers see value in organic and that they're willing to pay a premium for something that they see as better. And if regenerative could get to that same scale to become a household term and to be understood and appreciated and supported in purchasing, and through the economy, through the market, that then 1 billion acres becomes realistic, and again, it's the movement is working.
Yeah, I guess people don't have to understand it in order to still see value in it. Like a lot of people don't understand what organic is.
The overwhelming majority don't know what organic is.
Yeah.
They don't know what the standard is. They just know that it's
a
better
value term.
And that's why we didn't make the goal to have 70% of consumers be able to define regenerative, but to see it become a household term that gets supported, however it gets there.
Yeah, I think the regenerative movement, we're still in its infancy, and organic has been evolving for a long time. This didn't just happen overnight. This was like our parents and our grandparents, like going back to like the Rodale Institute in the like 1940s. Like the invent of industrial agriculture and the unintended consequences was the catalyst for organic. And so it's been a movement that's taken a long time to get to where it is. And so like, let's not be discouraged that regenerative, we're only a fraction of where we want to be, because it's just a matter of time. But I think there's more momentum, there's more hype, there's more hope with regenerative as being a greater option, a greater solution than organic ever was.
And I'm hopeful that regenerative doesn't have the ability to be industrialized. Industrialized organic is just, it's terrible. So like, how do we make sure that regenerative does not become industrialized as well?
So the third goal, I feel like such a nerd talking about financial goals.
I know, I don't give a shit
We're just going to say
1%, blah, blah, blah.
just justify why we have to have a financial goal.
The third goal is for Force of Nature to become 1% of the U.S. meat industry. And 1% is an interesting number because it's, to the casual observer, it's just a tiny number. And I think one of the key points there is the U.S. meat industry is gigantic, and 1% is more than enough. Like, we don't need, none of us want to have that responsibility, let alone do we need to be more than that. But I think the idea there is, one, you think we had one of our employees talking about triple bottom line and why that's a goal of ours. Like, we think you have to be successful for people and for the planet and for profit. And if this is going to be viable, if we're running a regenerative business and we're trying to set an example for other in this industry and other industries to adopt, it has to be economically sustainable. And so, being able to reach that scale allows us, to do a lot of things, like invest in this movement and be efficient and create a model that is replicable and desirable, so that these large incumbents want to adopt it themselves and can see the path and the justification for doing better, recognizing that consumers appreciated it and expect it. So yeah, there's a reason that there has to be a financial goal for any business. And then again, I think for us, 1%, we don't need it. Like, part of the challenge with meat is that it's centralized, it's controlled, all of it, by a few small companies. Like, we want to see the democratization of meat. And also, if, again, kind of all three of these goals have similar realities, that if Force of Nature were to achieve 1% of the U.S. meat industry, that would mean the ripple effect is far more profound, that other regenerative operations are also raising and significant. Maybe regenerative is 10% of the U.S. market, and it's becoming 10% of the agriculture, and and domestically as well as globally, and on and on. And so I think it's like, it has to be there has to be a material figure associated with it, but only enough such that it creates a cascade and a domino effect of positive outcomes much larger than ourselves.
Yeah, our country, we're so deeply rooted in like this GDP model where like companies have to continuously be showing shareholders growth, seemingly endless. But that 1% number for us, that's an interesting goal, because we're literally sending, like, the only signal that a lot of these multinational corporations can identify, which is bottom line, we're sending like a loud and clear signal that consumers are changing, their preferences are changing. So that might be something, to your point, that has that cascading effect. But like, how else are we going to convince a Bayer or a Monsanto or a JBS, one of these multinational companies, to pay attention and to evolve with us? Okay, you guys want to wrap it up somehow? Am I missing anything? I think
there were some cool stories too about, we talked about, some of the signs we got that we were, that it was working. But I think I don't know, we didn't talk about some of our proudest moments.
Let's do that.
I could probably just keep, if I think more about it, I could probably keep listing them off. But as we were talking, I think, we talked about directly and indirectly impacting a million acres as a goal at Epic. And, right now we're and this is an interesting podcast too, because it's like, we haven't made it. We're not where we need to be. We're on a path, and we're in a great spot moving in a direction, but we're by no means have we achieved everything that needs to happen for us. So this isn't like the looking back upon from the podium. But I think there are so many incredible things we've been able to do so far. Like, for example, we're almost impacting 2 million acres, through the partner farms and ranches that we work with, through their influence. It's getting close to 2 million acres of impact across all the species of animals that we work with, which I think is like super cool, because again, it's a long way away from 1 billion. But it's double what we ever thought was achievable a decade ago. And I remember, from an impact perspective, bringing on a farmer or a rancher, from California, just an incredible guy. And I remember meeting with them. It takes a while to bring somebody on. It takes, because you have a bunch of folks you don't want to pull the rug out from under as you bring in new folks, and you're trying to grow and forecast as things are changing dynamically, and it's really hard. But I remember him saying he was really in a bind and had freezers full of trim he couldn't sell, and it was becoming a burden on his business. And the first order we sent him was 2 full semis. And we unloaded every pound of trim that had been plaguing him out of a freezer. And that was like the start of that relationship, you know what I mean? So it's like being able to take somebody that was in a tough situation and see them relieved as a result of our relationship and our partnership and working together was 100% a massive part of our goals and objective. And it's impossible to be perfect, and you can't get it right and every single time. And there's stories of folks that we've worked with that we no longer work with for a variety of reasons, because business is hard and meat is hard, and people make their own decisions, and sometimes they make good decisions and sometimes not. But we try really hard to stand behind folks, and it's fun to drive that sort of positive impact. I think there is looking at bison, I think we always go back to our days at Epic again, and the being struck by the reality that there was so little grass-fed bison available back in the early 2010s that a small company at the time like Epic couldn't source enough grass-fed to even have one snack bar be fully grass-fed. So at Epic, there was the grass-fed bison bar, and then there was a natural bar that had animals that would have been raised in a pasture but then finished in grain in a feedlot type setting, which we've endeavored ever since to correct, and to go to several of the largest managers of bison in the world and see them convert all of or the majority of their supply chain from grain finishing to pasture raising and grass finishing as a direct result of working with us, and to see actual feedlots that would have held bison closed down with grass as tall as us standing up in them because they're emptied and barren, and these animals are being finished on pasture now. It's definitely a powerful moment for me in terms of feeling like, oh man, like we really are, like I said, I'm proud to be having this sort of an impact on on these systems in this world. And I think the bison industry is an interesting one because it's tiny compared to beef. But changing an industry is changing an industry. And I think we've been able to have a profound change on the bison industry for the better. And, to me, it's like scale's relative, and the same forces are at play in beef. And I think the ability to change beef becomes that much more tangible when you see the impact we've had on bison.
And so maybe one of my proudest moments, it's more personal, but like Katie and my families are birthing persons. They don't.
What? Is this for how I built this podcast?
He's saying moms.
Yeah, they don't recognize. I don't think they really pay much attention to what we do. They're kind of still like more participate in the industrial commodity system. And probably 2 years ago, my dad started ordering Force of Nature meats. And now for family gatherings, Christmas, Thanksgiving, it's always like a bison tenderloin or some ribeyes. And it's really cool to see like the evolution of how the flavor and the quality of our products has changed over time. Because there's people who are still like, bison, wild boar, that stuff's gamey, or like, I've never had a good grass-fed bison ribeye or beef ribeye. And I mean, I think our products are so exceptional that I'll put them like side by side with, even like grain-fed and Wagyu beef. Like, I just think they're awesome. You might not agree with me on that because you're like, you want the fattiest beef ribeye ever.
We have some fatty beef ribeyes.
Which is, the Force of Nature meat, like the quality that it speaks and the fact that my parents now and my family embraces it and looks forward to it, just from like a flavor perspective. But I know it's also nourishing them. I feel like that is that was quite an accomplishment because maybe the first year or two, we had some really great batches of ribeyes and then some not so great batches of ribeyes.
You had to really want it in the early days because it was going to vary.
It's true. Those
but
people
that dialed in and
they have like that thing they chew on to make their jaws really structured and strong looking.
Yeah.
That was some of the early Force of Nature bison ribeyes.
We were helping people with their sleep apnea and their jaw lines for sure.
For sure. The Weston Price community, we're fixing all those kids with crooked teeth. All their problems.
But it's pretty dialed in now.
Yeah, that's come a long way. And it's only going to get better.
Okay, my turn. I just feel like silly because y'all's were like big and mine's like really small. I feel like some of my proudest, I don't know, moments. I'm not going to call it a moment. I would say that some of my proudest work that I've done is honestly like from the conference. After the conference weekends, I'm like so full of energy and tears of joy, and just so inspired that I remember like after the conference the first year, like I called my mom and I was like, because I'm not one to like talk about things that I've done, even when I'm standing on the podium. And I called my mom and I was like, I am so proud of myself. Like, we put on this amazing thing and it impacted so many people's lives. And so the conference, just like brings me just so much, I don't know, pride. Is that the right term?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
We gotta get our parents at the conference. I don't even think they know what we do, but if they go to that conference, they're gonna be like, wow.
My mom sewed all
My kids
the
are cool.
table runners and the bandanas for it last year.
Yeah.
My mom knows that it exists. She just hasn't come.
Yeah. But it is neat that, to feel that sense of
like I've never called my mom and been like, I won this race or I...
And you win races. You've done that.
Yeah, and I've done that. Or I don't even know if I told her about Epic until like maybe she saw the newspaper article or whatever, but I just feel really proud of the conference.
Do you don't want to talk about anything about hope, or we could end on that if you want, or if you feel like you've already done that a million times, we could talk about favorite product. Do we need to talk about distribution, where we started, where we went, like vaguely? I don't know, just questions that we don't want to like make sure we leave anything out. We're almost there.
I don't think so.
I think it's up to you. I think ending on hope is good. I think ending on proud is good.
I feel like I always do the hope one.
Okay. Well, we just ended on proud moments, so
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, then
I didn't even get to talk shit about influencers. So one thing I wanted to do.
Katie, would you like to end by talking shit about influencers?
we could end on that funny story. That's a pretty funny story.
We should end on a high note, whatever that story is. I don't know, but we should
It's a
definitely
funny
end
story.
on a high note.
That's funny.
It's a funny one.
Oh my God.
No, we're good.
Taylor, you got a million notes there. What did we not cover?
I mean, we really did do everything except the influencers.
We don't
The
have
story.
to be negative.
Yeah.
No, I want to hear the story.
Tell me.
Spit it out. We don't have to put that in the pod, but just after the fact, I'm gonna hear it.
Will do.
Um,
I'm going to look up the girls' podcast.
maybe just where do we go from here? Maybe where do we go from here? Like you kind of alluded to it. Okay.
Call to action.
Yeah. All right. So I guess just kind of wrap it up and think about like, where do we go from here? Because Robbie, as you said, that this is a journey. We have not arrived. We are far from the finish line, and this is not a sprint. This is an ultra marathon or Ironman endurance event. But where do we go from here? Oh, Katie. Katie's mind is working.
I don't know where your mind is at as to where we go from here, but I think that, like just for a reflection for people to be thinking about is like, if your values lie in the regenerative space, that just recognizing that the regenerative space doesn't end at meat. Like obviously animals are part of it, but the end product of an animal can go in so many different places aside from protein. Like there's leather goods, there's wool, etc. And so thinking about how your values align with things beyond what you actually put in your mouth, but also the things that you put on your body, and just looking at it more holistically as, like I feel like the more you commit to like a regenerative lifestyle, the more you see areas in your life where it's like there's either conflict in your actions and your beliefs. That's not where you wanted me to take it.
No, I love it.
Okay.
You're so spot on. Food, fiber, and dairy.
And non-toxic living. And the chemicals you have in your house. Because the chemicals you have in your house are the chemicals that are going into our rivers. Like it's so holistic.
But food is a really good entry point.
Food's a great entry point.
It's a good place to
But think
start.
beyond it.
Love it.
That was very inspiring. I was thinking more about force of nature,
I figured.
but I thought that's what the question was specifically for.
You can interpret it.
Are we providing a motivational messaging at large, or are we talking about where force of nature goes from here?
I think it's hand in hand. So
No, I think everything Katie said makes total sense. I think as far as like, I think force of nature, we need to keep at it. It's like we just celebrated our 5th year, and that seems hard to believe. But we have a lot of momentum, and every year we get larger, and it makes it more challenging. As you said, the team's growing, and it's like as we get larger, there's more things to manage and try to coordinate, but also like the opportunity for impact gets bigger too. And so then our appetite and desire for, okay, now we can do this bigger thing. Now we can do this bigger thing. And we can really drive change at, larger scales. I think last year mid-year, we brought on a partner in Australia, and they converted a 250,000 acre ranch to regenerative. And then we just did an annual review with them, and they manage millions of acres, and they're changing their management of all of their land because of the positive impact they saw on that one piece that we're directly impacting, and so I think it's just like still continuing to keep our heads down and try to do the right thing and grow this movement and in the best way we can, and bring on people on our team that can help us, bring that sort of scale and change and continue to drive success against those legacy goals and continue to put a become, reach more consumers, help them become more aware of these issues, and help them make the best decision for their value set, and simultaneously get the attention of more of the incumbency that's been complicit in the large meat purveyors that are producing these negative externalities, and get their attention that there's a better alternative, and create appeal for that, create incentives for them to want to be better, and certainly cause them to see that consumers are expecting it and demanding it, and driving more impact. And so I think we're trying to find ways to reach more people with appropriate messages, and be a good actor in this space, and a good partner to the folks that work with us and everybody that doesn't. There's a lot of folks that we work with that we're proud of, and there's a lot of folks that are doing really great things that we don't work with, and we're friends with many of them, and they all need support as well. So it's like playing our role to lift this industry up and create a rising tide is what I'm most excited about, and that's what we're going to be focused on trying to do as we forge ahead in the next 5 years.
What is, since you guys have pretty much exclusively eat regenerative meat, lots of it force of nature, if not hunted yourselves, what is, if a consumer is going to try one force of nature product, what's your favorite? What are you putting on their plate? I'll say beef ancestral, baby. Heart, liver, it is so tasty. Like, my little girls eat it up. I just think it's the most flavorful ground beef product that I've ever put in my mouth. And knowing that those extra nutrients are in there all day long, I would eat that for every meal.
I think our venison breakfast sausage is fucking awesome. But I mean, I obviously don't eat that for breakfast, but I love beef ribeyes. And I think my dad actually called and actually ate, or speaking of our family, like, my dad called and said that he ate the hot dogs, and because Danielle had them at her house, and he was like, those are really good. Talk about like another moment where I was like so proud.
See, yeah, that's hope, because that's like, if we can create a product that our parents will eat and they rave about, then this thing has the potential to make it.
I'll let y'all know in a future podcast when my family embraces our products.
Oh no!
I kind of don't leave them a lot of choice, because wherever we're going, I ship them. So they're there waiting. I force it. But Taylor, like, at my house, like, all I ever cook pretty much is the ancestral blends.
Okay.
Because it's just so convenient and easy and healthy, like you said. So that's like my go-to product. I feel like if I was recommending it to like the average person out there, I'd say our beef ribeye, because that's kind of one of the most popular cuts of meat. And I think, like we mentioned it earlier, there's there's been some really questionable product out in the industry through the years, and I think ours is really good. And I think we could really open some eyes about, to folks that wanted to try that. I can guarantee they'd have a good eating experience. But like you, the breakfast sausage is like, Madeline, my daughter, eats that every single day. She's obsessed with it. I'm like, what do you want for breakfast? Sausage? Like, okay, well, what else do you want? Sausage? It's like, okay, we're having sausage again.
It's the best when you have all the rendering from the fat too in your pan, and then for dinner, you just, whatever you're going to cook, you cook it in the sausage fat. Mm-hmm. Okay, last thing, I just have to know, this is like Katie's not really, she doesn't spend too much time in the kitchen, but she has one recipe that she's master crafted, and it is exploding throughout the universe, and that is cooking ground bison or beef and putting chopped bananas in it. Mm-hmm. Have you done that yet?
No, I only just heard about this movement that Katie has started. I only heard about it a couple hours ago, actually. So
what's your initial reaction to the sound of that? Ground meat with bananas.
It sounds very South American, like we're talking plantains. And I love fruit and meat, like berries, like a chutney or so I'm on board to give it a try.
Going home to try it today.
It's the most fantastic recipe ever.
I mean, I eat like banana. I made banana pancakes for my family this morning, right? So it's like, just mix eggs and bananas in a batter and then cook it. And so it's like, I think bananas could be. You got my curiosity piqued.
Tomorrow, you got to make sure the meat's really nice and hot, and the bananas are just room temperature. Because you don't do a cold banana, because then it's gonna make all the fat.
Why not? You don't want to heat your banana up and get like.
Well, you can
caramelized
but
banana
you might
going?
want a little bit more of a crispy.
We should get Chef Morgan to
Yeah, to perfect this
Amongst
recipe.
his also buco and like actual culinary masterpieces to do bananas and ground meat. See
Our
how that
next
one
blog
blows
recipe.
up. Just goes absolutely viral.
Yeah, do that as one of the
I've
recipes.
gotten a couple people
Do a
scored with
partnership
them.
with Chiquita Banana. Okay. Well,
Thanks
until
for
next
having
time.
us.
Yep.